Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining me today on the Marketing Resolution YouTube channel. My name is Natalie Armstrong Motin, and I'm in Normandy, France, but I'm lucky enough to be chatting to a colleague of mine in Ireland. This is Bill Holohan. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Getting older and hopefully wiser.
Well, the older bit we can't help. The wiser, though, in your case, is a certainty. So thanks very much for joining me today. You have an incredible bio, enormous amount of experience. I mean, you've got an alphabet soup behind your last name that is absolutely impressive, not to mention authoring 8 books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Your bio goes on and on and on, so really impressive. And I know that for you, bringing all of that experience, bringing all of those different filters and all of the different hats that you've worn over a lifetime career is what makes you such a unique practitioner. So I was wondering if you could explain to the viewers a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you do it, maybe even who some of your clients, without divulging details, but who your typical client might be.
Okay. I am now 59, heading for 60. Hopefully not feeling the effects of getting older. I was intended in life to become an accountant because I used to get straight A's in math, as the Americans would call it. And I had an uncle who had no sons and who had an accountancy practice, so that I was close to him. The presumption was that I was going to become an accountant. And one day in class, a teacher figured that I was taking notes rather too carefully. So he came over, pulled out the piece of paper, looked at it and said, "Holohan, if that's what turns you on, become a lawyer." And I was making up an agreement to give a loan of a book to a friend of mine sitting next to me. And then I signed up for a 6-night course on law for the citizen. And that opened up something, and I just said, yep, that's for me. So I went off, studied, went to school. In Ireland, we go to a university first, then we go into professional training. While I was doing my professional training after getting my first degree, I did a second degree, ended up doing a thesis in shipping law because 2 ships bashed into each other in Cork Harbour, and the office I worked for were the lawyers for the Harbour Commissioners. Went to the Academy of International Law in The Hague for a while, then qualified as a solicitor, as they're called. The official title is solicitor and attorney in Ireland, but in the British Isles they refer to them as solicitors, but also we are attorneys. I then started off, and every 3 to 4 years I've kind of wandered into a different area of practice, and through good fortune or otherwise I've ended up doing various things, getting involved in various kind of professional organizations, and ending up writing 8 books. But I now describe myself as a repentant lawyer who, having worshipped in the satanic church of litigation for 25 years, found the one true church of mediation, and that, like a lot of evangelists who would come knocking on the door saying, "We have come by Jesus," practitioners in Ireland would say, "And by Jesus you can go." But now, after 13 years, they're beginning to listen. We have legislation now in Ireland since last year putting mediation on a statutory footing. So in one sense, they have to learn about it, they have to know about it. I'm already acting for defendants in 2 cases, had 2 cases non-suited, i.e. thrown out of court because of failure to advise, in accordance with a statutory obligation now for lawyers in Ireland, to advise about the benefits and the advantages of mediation. And the difficulty with those 2 cases being thrown out is, one, they can come back again. It's just that particular suit was thrown out. But the other is now statute barred and has resulted in a negligence action against the lawyer involved, all because they didn't go and worship in the one true church of mediation.
That's what happens. That's what happens. You got to believe us when we tell you that this is the best thing since sliced bread. So I wanted to...
What did the baker who presented the sliced loaf to his employer, what did the employer say? This is the best thing since what was before sliced bread?
Little green apples? I don't know what it would be, but it's what we use now as the benchmark. so you have all of this different experience as a business person, as an advocate, as a mediator, as a citizen, as all of these different things. And so you bring all of those different components of your experience into your hearing rooms. Does that mean that you are an evaluative mediator? Are you a facilitative mediator? How do you best help your clients?
Okay, you have to try to relate to the client. Now, I am, as well as being a practicing lawyer, stroke mediator, I'm a notary public, I am a trademark agent, I'm an EU trademark practitioner, I'm a director and shareholder of over 20 companies. Most of them, as you can tell by quite obviously looking at me, in the fitness industry, believe it or not. But you pick up kind of life experiences as you go that allow you to relate to people. And empathy is the most important skill that a mediator could possibly have. A number of years ago, I had a dispute involving 3 insurance companies where I was acting for one of the insurance companies involved who were indemnifying various parties. And with some difficulty, I persuaded my colleagues to agree to go to mediation. And one of them said, oh, we now need a senior counsel. That would be the equivalent of Queen's Counsel in the UK, a highly expert trial lawyer in the US terms, who would be a specialist in insurance law. And I said, that's the last thing we need. In this, we actually need, because there's a citizen bringing a claim, I said, we need an empathic mediator. And the mediator had no law training whatsoever. In fact, it started life as a fitter in terms of the building trade. But he was a great mediator and still is. So you have to try and build a bond with people. And sometimes you have to challenge people. You know, when someone says, but I am right. And I said, how long have you been involved in this conflict? 5 years. So how is right and being right working out for you? And I have another phrase that I use, let's not dwell on matters hysterical. They tend to become matters hysterical. And it's a question of trying to work out what will resonate with people. Sometimes, you have to tell people that they are being bold, they are being childish, they are being unreasonable, and that they're perfectly entitled to go on being childish or unreasonable, but what will it profit them? And you have to try and get people to see at times the absurdity of their position. So sometimes I'm evaluative, sometimes I'm quite challenging, sometimes I will simply listen, simply because someone will talk themselves out. And I've had a situation recently in mediation where someone has kept on talking to fill the silence and eventually said, that sounds incredibly stupid, doesn't it? And I didn't say anything, I was just, and they realized themselves, so it's different tactics depending on the people you're dealing with. It's horses for courses.
Yeah, well, the thing about being a mediator is that it requires a hybrid of art and science. So we've been given the blueprint for these fantastic processes, but then there's the human component, and that requires us to be a bit of an artist and decipher humans and their intentions and their motives, and sometimes we hear what they say, sometimes we look at their face when they say what they say and recognize that they don't actually believe what they're saying, or they don't like what they're saying. So it requires us to be artists to a great degree. And it sounds like because of your varied and vast background and experience, you're able to establish trust and confidence with your clients rather quickly, and therefore get them to resolution.
The way I describe it is, you need to understand what makes people tick and what makes people thick. And there's more of a H than in all of the difference. And I give a good example. A number of years ago, there was a very successful company, multi-million turnover, 2 brothers, 10 years difference in age. The older brother was the finder, the younger brother was the minder. Now they also had a winder and a grinder. If you understand the meaning of the expression, the finder, the minder, the grinder. The Finder, sales, bring them in. Doesn't need to know anything about the business, just good PR, the Rotary Club, Golf Club, whatever it is, bring them in. The minder, customer support, service, etc., looks after them when they're in the door. The winder is what I call the do you want fries with that? You know, if you're starting up in business as a lawyer, you'd say to somebody, oh, you need a will because all this hard work will kill you, or you might go insane in the meantime, so we better get an enduring power of attorney. And you're hiring people, we'll need contracts of employment. That's the, you want fries with that. And the winder is the homicidal, antisocial sociopath you keep in the back room, give them loads of work, but never let them talk to anybody. There's a bit of that in all of us. But the older brother was the finder, the younger brother was the minder. He was the numbers guy, almost on the spectrum, very serious. Everything was a spreadsheet. And suddenly the younger brother, this is a company operating in Ireland, the younger brother suddenly announced, oh, I want to sell up, I'm going to move to the States and set up a new business in the States. And the older brother said, why? He said, oh, the business has peaked, there's no more growth, this is the end of it. And the older brother said, nonsense, we have another 20 years. They then started exchanging memos. Now, the older brother was a one-page man. The younger brother was a 40-page memorandum, graphs, spreadsheets, full of data man. So they weren't communicating. And just before a petition was to be presented to the High Court here in Ireland to wind up the company, resulting in a fire sale which would have crashed the value, and lots of people would have lost their jobs, they decided to mediate. And I got my co-author on the book, Keith Kelliher, who's actually a quantity surveyor, but a very good mediator. I got him in and we did a bit of a tag team exercise and we swapped around between the two of them. But it was a question of getting to know them first and getting them to trust us. And the younger brother revealed the real reason he wanted to cash in. He was in his 40s. He had married at 39. He and his wife had gone through 6 sessions of IVF. You know, 1 would be grueling and expensive. 6 was devastating and hideously expensive, but unsuccessful. In Ireland, he figured, rationally, it's going to take me 7 years to go through the adoption board approval process, at which point, because of less and less intra-country adoption, there won't be any children available in Ireland, and I will be in my 50s, and I'll be running out of eligibility years in Ireland. Whereas if he went to the States, set up in business, well, the NSA might live with him for 2 years. If he gets through that process, he'd have a child in the house in 18 months to 24 months. And so, but he couldn't tell his older brother. He was afraid of telling his older brother and being rejected. So he had gone through this big exercise of memos and spreadsheets and graphs to justify his request. He asked me, would I communicate? I did, and the older brother said, oh my God, of course, that's what we have to do. But, you know, let's explore other options. And we came up with an option because they owned various properties that they were operating on it. They sold those, leased them back, generated a pot of cash in the company, paid that out by way of share redemption to the younger brother, who got his nest egg, went to the States, set up what is now a thriving business in the States, and he has 2 kids. The older brother, 5 years later, the two of them decided they're going to smell the roses. And they cashed in for 5 times the book value at the time of mediation, which would have been halved in a liquidation. Now that's a complete win-win. But where in the dusty halls of a courtroom, in the context of what we call a chance reaction to wind up a successful company, does the desire to have a child feature? It doesn't. And that's the beauty of mediation.
Yeah, that is one of the most perfect examples of why to not litigate and why to mediate a case. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard a more perfect anecdote to support the reason that that people ought to really consider using one of the resolution processes that you offer. So, well, Bill, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I know that you've got a really dynamic website that if someone Googles your name, they're going to come up with all kinds of resources. They can find your books, your articles, the list just goes on and on and on and on about you, which is fantastic, really, for our industry and for your clients. I'm proud to call you a colleague and thrilled that you joined me here today, and look forward to talking to you again. And hopefully I'll get to interview you about one of your books soon.
Anytime. Okay. Have a nice
Thanks
day.
very much, Bill. I really appreciate it. Oh, and everyone, please don't forget, subscribe, like, and share. And for more information about Bill and his books, of course, I'll put the web information in the description bar so you'll be able to contact him and connect directly. Thank you very much, Bill, and to everyone else, be good humans.
Take care.